My family is blaming me for a fight after my half-brother destroyed pictures of my mom, plus updates. Original post. So, a bit of backstory. I, 16 male, recently moved in with my dad, 47 male, after my mom died. Dad's never really been in my life, and he and my mom were never married. He has a wife, Susan, 48 female, and 2 other kids, Amy, 14 female, and Mark, 18 male. So, when I ended up moving in with my dad, it obviously caused a lot of issues with the rest of the family. Nobody wanted me there, and basically gave me the cold shoulder. Susan, Mark, and Amy tend to talk with each other in French because they know that I can't understand them. And my dad has tried to force an English-only rule in the house with a little luck. For the first month, Mark just ignored me completely, even though he and I were forced to share a room since the house didn't have any space. I tried to be nice, but I just lost my mom and it hurts. And it's been so much change so quickly. 2 days ago, though, I found postcards and pictures and letters from my mom ripped into a bunch of pieces and scattered all across my bed. I kept them in a box under my bed, and Mark had been the only one in the house with me at a time, so I know he did it. I started yelling at him, and we ended up verbally fighting right as Susan and Amy got back home. I can't remember what Mark said anymore because I was so mad that I wasn't thinking straight, but I remember hitting him. We both exchanged a couple of punches, and I accidentally elbowed Amy in the nose while she and Susan were trying to separate us, so she was bleeding too. When my dad got home, we were still yelling, and Susan was trying to throw me out of the house. I couldn't stop crying because I just had my only actual photos of my mom ruined, and I don't know if we can fix them. My dad tried to settle everyone down, but didn't end up punishing Mark because there's no actual proof that he did it. I got in trouble for throwing the first punch though, and Susan is still trying to convince my dad to send me somewhere else. Both Amy and Mark keep telling me that I ruined their family by coming here, but I didn't really have a choice. I know I shouldn't have hit him, but I was so mad I didn't think. I know I shouldn't have escalated anything, but am I really the one at fault here? I don't know how I'm supposed to live with Mark anymore. Now for the top advice before reading the update. These parents need to hold somebody accountable because obviously your pictures did just rip themselves up. You're right that you shouldn't have hit your half-brother, but assuming that your mom passed away rather recently, you're in grief. So it's not unreasonable that you'd be upset by this. I'm sorry this happened to you. That's a truly awful thing to discover. It's been about 2.5 months and it was really sudden. My mom and I were really close, and I think I've seen my dad twice before I had to go live with him, and not for almost a decade. I know I still have recent pictures on my phone, but it's not the same. From what I've figured out, Susan knew about the affair but didn't know about me until my mom died. Amy and Mark didn't know about the affair at all. They're mad at me for existing, but they're also really upset with my dad for good reason. I don't have any family on my mom's side that can take me in, and my dad lives in a different country than my mom and I lived in before. So we're not close to anyone I used to know. I just don't know how to tell my dad how isolated I feel without sounding ungrateful for him being able to take me in after my mom died. Yeah, I can only imagine how hard everything is right now. Your whole life has basically been flipped upside down. Is there anyone on your mom's side you could talk to, maybe even live with for a few years until you're old enough to get your own place? I think that would be worth exploring, to get yourself out of this environment that doesn't seem to be getting off on the right foot. It's just my grandparents on my mom's side, and they basically disowned her because my dad was married to his wife when my mom got pregnant. They're very religious, and I haven't had any contact with them since I was born. They didn't even come to our funeral. Now for the first update. So I've posted about this in here before, but things have gotten worse and I feel like I don't know how to navigate it. It's been about 6 months since I, 16 male, had to move in with my dad, 47 male, and his family after my mom died, and I still feel like his wife and my half-siblings despise me just for being there. The issue of my mom's pictures getting destroyed turned what was already a crappy situation into something that is just killing me. I ended up sleeping on the couch for almost 2 months because I couldn't stand the sight of my half-brother Mark, 18 male, after what he did to my stuff, and started carrying a backpack around the house with anything personal that I had brought from my mom's apartment wherever I went, so nothing else could be damaged. Mark ended up apologizing to me, but it seemed more of a show for my dad than an actual apology to me. My dad's wife, Susan, 48 female, and my half-sister Amy, now 15 female, still barely acknowledged me and still almost exclusively used French in the house, which I'm only now starting to pick up words in conversation for. I've always felt like a stranger in this house, and while I understand why they don't want me around, I don't know what I can do to try and make things work. The worst of it came 3 weeks ago when I lost my keys to the house and got stuck out in the rain after I came home. I tried calling my dad, but he didn't pick up, and I rang the doorbell as many times as I could because I saw Susan's car outside the house, so I know she was home. There wasn't much close by us, so I couldn't walk anywhere to wait. By the time my dad got home an hour and a half later, I was soaked and cold, and when we got inside, Susan just said that she was on a call and couldn't hear the doorbell ringing. I couldn't even talk to her and just went upstairs and cried in the bathroom before going to bed. My dad apologized later for not seeing my message sooner, but that's not really the issue here. I feel sick living here and can barely eat or sleep half the time. My grades are tanking and I don't feel like I can talk to anyone. I miss my mom, and everyone is pretending like she never existed, and I have to basically do the same thing so nobody at home gets mad at me. The main issue is, a week ago, my dad's best friend and his husband, who I've met a couple times and stayed with the first couple nights after I reconnected with my dad, while he was trying to figure out how to bring me home, heard about me being locked out of the house and asked if I wanted to come stay with them for a while. I want to say yes so bad, because anywhere has to be better than where I'm staying now. But I know it's going to cause issues with my dad, because he ruined his entire relationship with his family to be able to bring me home so I wouldn't have to go into foster care, and it's going to seem incredibly ungrateful. I know my dad's trying, he really is, but I don't know what I'm going to do if I have to keep living in his house until I turn 18. How do I broach this subject with him? Is trying to move out even worth it at this point, or should I just toughen up and deal with it for the next year and a half? You're living in a hostile environment. With time, that will really affect your health negatively. You've been offered a safe space to live. Don't walk, but run in that direction. Your dad is the adult. Let him deal with all the negative consequences. Put yourself first. I'm really sorry about the loss of your mother. Honestly, I feel like it probably already is. I'm so tired all the time but can't sleep, and somehow still can't get out of bed in the morning. I feel like I haven't even gotten a chance to breathe or process the fact that my mom's dead because there's been so much change so quick, which is also kind of why I don't want to have to move houses again. I am so sorry. Your father's wife and your half-siblings have a lot of misplaced anger. Do they treat your father the same way they've been treating you? Although in relation to the advice you're seeking, that's neither here nor there. I would definitely take your dad's friends up on the offer, even if it's just for a short while. You need to get out of that toxic situation. You also need to have a frank talk with your dad. Is he backing you up in these situations, or does he stand by and let them treat you like that? You're going through a rough time, and it must be terrible to feel like no one is there to support you. There was definitely a lot of tension between my dad, Amy, and Susan, but that seems to have mostly gone away after the first couple months. Mark seems still angry with him, but it kind of feels like they just heard all that anger on me. I've tried talking to my dad about it, at least a little, but there aren't a lot of times where it's just the two of us and I don't feel comfortable saying anything in front of everyone else. Nobody really does anything to me in front of my dad, except the language thing, which he does try and stop every time he catches it. But Mark and Susan usually just do things behind his back to hurt me. And I think my dad doesn't want to believe that his wife and kids are capable of treating me like that. Now for the second update. It's been about a week since I talked to my dad, and I've had a couple people message me about an update, so I figured I'd give one. For those who didn't see my original post, I, 16 male, had to move in with my dad, 47 male, and his family after my mom died, and things have been extremely strained. The worst incidences being my half-brother ripping pictures of my mom up, and my dad's wife leaving me locked out of the house. So I was given the offer to move out by my dad's friend and his husband, both 30s male. I followed a couple people's suggestion and texted my dad's friend that I wanted to leave, and they ended up suggesting we all go out to lunch. I think they could both tell how nervous I was around my dad, and my dad's friend John ended up being the one to bring up the idea of me moving out. My dad seemed completely blindsided by it and asked why I wanted to move out. John and his husband Ben reminded him about everything that's been going on at home, and I just kind of sat there. My dad seemed really upset, and it made me feel terrible because I already felt guilty about leaving. But then he just asked if I really wanted to go. I said yes, and he just immediately agreed. It kind of hit me that I wanted him to try and fight for me, to say sorry for everything that he's been letting happen, and for my dad to try and keep me at home. But he just let me go like it was nothing. It's been hard after my mom died, and my dad's the only family I've got left, so it really didn't make me feel any better about leaving, even though I don't have to deal with my dad's family anymore. Ben took me back to their apartment while John went with my dad to get my stuff from the house. and they had set up their extra room for me already. He apologized that they hadn't been able to do this sooner, and that they hoped I would like living with them. John came back with all of my things, and they kind of gave me time to decompress. I ended up sleeping for almost 16 hours because I was so exhausted. Over the last week, they've been really nice about making me feel at home, and have talked to me about getting me into therapy to deal with losing my mom and everything that happened at my dad's house. They're also trying to figure out how to move me into a different school, so I don't have to deal with my half-sister and everyone that knew my half-brother. It's the first time in months that I feel like I can actually breathe, and I don't feel like I'm constantly on guard. My dad hasn't texted me much or reached out in the last week, so I don't know what's going to happen with him. But for now, I'm safe, I guess. So that's what happened so far. Thanks for everyone that gave me advice and wished me well. It's been really hard lately, and it made me feel less alone. Edit: a quick update over the last 24 hours or so. Ben's sister somehow saw this and sent it to him, so he and John came in and asked. They never heard about a picture incident, and apologized that they hadn't asked to get me out sooner. They had no idea how bad it was, and said I can stay as long as I want or need to. I realized then that I hadn't really said thanks to them because it's been so crazy. So I told them how much I appreciated having the place to stay. It was a really emotional moment, honestly, and I'm glad it happened. They did think it was funny that they've been called everything from my roommates to my new landlord, so that's helped soften the mood a little. I'm sorry I haven't been able to respond to many comments. This feels really overwhelming, but I just wanted everyone to know that the support means a lot. Thanks. It sounds like you are in a good situation after being in a very bad one. It was good you moved out, as your dad was not likely to change his wife and children. Definitely go to therapy. You went through a lot, and it sounds like John and Ben are good people. Maybe they have a little experience with tough family situations and can be there to help you. You can definitely now rest and then be able to get back up in a situation that allows you to focus on your best future. I'm sorry your dad didn't work out, but after some time, you will be 1,000 times better off than if you had stayed. His family was abusive to you and you aren't the problem. Just a consequence of your dad's actions. However, you are your own whole human being and deserve happiness. His wife should know that. His wife shouldn't have been a bad person and treated you poorly, and thereby teaching her children to treat you badly because of her own unhappiness with your father. Your dad likely let you go because he knew he can't keep you safe from his chosen family and past choices. He should know that you don't deserve to live in that environment because of him. Hopefully he will send you money, even if he can't face you out of shame he has against himself. You are just a person. Rest up, heal, and go on doing person things. Internet hugs and head pats. Now for the third and last update. Hey everyone! I know it's been a while since I made my update post about moving out of my dad's house, and a lot of people have been asking for another update, so I figured I would give one last update. Things have been relatively quiet since I moved out. I transferred schools and started therapy a few months ago. John and Ben have been really kind about giving me space to grieve my mom, and I don't feel like I have to hide all of her stuff anymore. I managed to get a couple of the pictures digitally repaired thanks to someone reaching out to me on here. And while it's not the same, at least it's something. Family-wise, it's still hard. After my post blew up, it ended up reaching out to Amy, my half-sister. She said she had read all the comments and started feeling bad about everything that her mom and brother did. She ended up apologizing for what she had done and understood if I didn't want to forgive her. We texted for a while about all of it, and we've been in an okay place since that talk. I still haven't heard anything from Mark and Susan, but I don't really expect to either. My dad has come over to John and Ben's apartment to see me a few times, and we go to lunch about once a month. But other than that, I haven't really seen him much. John did tell me that about 3 weeks ago, my dad moved out of the house and got his own apartment. From what it sounds like, he and Susan aren't separating yet, but is giving her space. I tried texting him about it but never got a response. Things are okay now, even though it's getting close to a year since my mom died, which will probably be hard when it happens. Thanks for everyone that messaged me or commented. I'm sorry I didn't respond to everyone, but the response was a little overwhelming. I think the most upsetting thing out of all of this is that OP will never get those photos back. He doesn't have any more ties to his mother and doesn't have any way of asking anyone for photos of her, stories, or literally anything. All he has now is memory. And not disciplining Mark because there's no proof it was him? What, did Opie rip his own keepsakes? Right? Oh, it was a ghost. No, a-hole. It was the person who despised him and had access. You punish Mark for the destruction and for lying through his teeth. What horrible, crappy people. I'm just glad a 14-year-old sister was able to recognize she was being a craphead. I think I've read this before, but God, poor Opie. It's not his fault the dad was a cheater. Didn't even fight for Opie at all through the entire story. A typical pathetic cheater. Can't say I'm surprised at all. I'm still gutting for Opie regardless. He is a coward. He refuses to stand up for his child because he doesn't want the backlash for it. He should, rightly, tell them to be angry at him and not the boy who did nothing wrong, but he's completely spineless. And that lack of anything resembling moral or intestinal fortitude is destroying any chance he has of a relationship with Opie. I feel for Opie. The only people in his corner now were very nearly strangers. But I'm glad he has them because I don't know if he would have lasted much longer in a home filled with people who unjustly hate him or are embarrassed by his existence. Wait, so the loser dad moved out and separated from his wife and still hasn't come through for Opie? He's not even responding to their texts? That guy is an absolute piece of crap. What a waste of human being. He deserves every bad thing. He was happily pretending Opie didn't exist, till his mom passed and his existence was exposed. So what did you expect? Dude cheated, kept a child hidden, used said child as emotional shield when his family was angry at him, abandoned a kid with his buddies. He isn't cut to be a father, a husband, or anything really. Giving a great dawn to Ben and John is probably the only good decision he ever made. Update. Boyfriend faked death and called my reaction manipulative. Original post. Me and my boyfriend. I'm 21 female, he's 24 male. Together for 3 years, live apart but have/had plans to rent together soon. Everything's perfect before this. Backstory. I have a history of self-harm. I have done it since I was 11 years old. The last time I did it was 2 years ago. I have some brutal scars, but I'm doing much better and I'm in therapy. It's been a while since I even had the urge. My boyfriend had an ex before me who played mind games a lot. I feel it's relevant as he sometimes thinks I'm playing games when I'm not. For example, he was wary when we started dating that I would self-harm for attention or do it to punish him. His ex would threaten things like that if he ever left her. I don't/haven't ever done this, and despite my struggles, I'm pretty good with being patient and communicative. Until this, I considered us to have a really healthy relationship. Main story. Boyfriend went out drinking with his friends. I usually hear from him as he gets home 2 a.m.-ish to let me know he is home and safe, but I didn't hear anything last night. I figured he just forgot. No biggie. I went to bed as normal. I woke up to 11 a.m. to a bunch of missed calls from his mother. They live together. I called her back and she texted at 1 p.m. that she couldn't talk. I was kind of worried and told her as much. She said my boyfriend didn't get home last night and was in a crash and didn't make it. This was super weird to me since I get on well with his mom and would never expect to be told this via text. After some more texting, I fully believed my boyfriend had passed away that morning, and I totally shut down. The people I live with were all out that day, so I was alone. Grief set in immediately and I had an extremely bad relapse on my self-harm. At that point, I didn't even care. I was just hurting so much that my usual coping techniques just weren't doing their job. I listened to old voice notes of his and even sent one telling him how much I loved him through the most unhinged sobbing I've ever done. Well, he arrived at my house 20 minutes later saying it was a prank, since he got into a small bump and thought I'd get mad about him driving drunk, as well as about him mushing up his car a little. And him and his friends came up with this plan to just make me happy he was alright. So they took his mom's phone and the above happened. I obviously was thankful he wasn't dead. But I had a million other much stronger emotions. I was so angry he drove drunk. So angry he saw nothing wrong with it. So angry that he would lie about something so serious, and absolutely heartbroken that he let me sit in grief for over an hour until I sent a voice note that made him feel bad. Plus lots of other things I'm still struggling to articulate. He found out I harmed myself and flew off the handle. He said I punished him and turned a harmless prank into something much more serious and ruined the joke of it. He said I was guilting him for having fun, and now he can't trust I would do it again. He even suggested I stay in hospital for my mental issues for a few weeks and crank up therapy. He said he can't leave me if he wants now, or else I'll act like this, just like his ex. I am beyond hurt. I probably should look into therapy if I'm still resorting to it, I admit. But this was not an everyday bout of anxiety or even a breakup. I thought he died. I'm also very aware that his actions were massively crappy, and he is being so manipulative in the aftermath. How is it a punishment if I thought he was gone? I absolutely would not react like this if he just broke up with me, and I have never said or hinted at that. Not really sure what to do now. My gut tells me to leave him over this, but I'm so unsure. Now for the top advice before reading the update. What a sick joke. You need to break things off ASAP. What a cruel thing to do. I could never even be friends with someone who did this. The worst part is that he did it to get away from the consequences of drinking and driving. He willingly and purposely hurt you to ease the repercussions of his actions. Let that sink in, and dump him, please. He's a piece of trash. He even took his mom's phone to make it look like she was in on it. That takes it to a whole new level of cruelty. OP, I would dump him immediately and tell his mom what he did. Make sure you actually talk to her so you know she actually knows what he did. Please listen to your gut. This is beyond horrible behavior, not a harmless prank. You deserve to be with someone who has compassion and respect for you. If anything, the boyfriend needs therapy. The boyfriend is a horrible person. What he did shows deep character flaws. The drunk driving is bad enough, the more so because he knew it was wrong and chose to do it anyway. But the harmless prank? That's just mean. So disrespectful and inconsiderate, made all the more so by your personal history. And speaking of the accident, did he leave the scene of an accident while he was driving drunk? Or was he late getting home because he got a DUI? He bumped into a fence post, so luckily nobody was injured. But the potential was there as well as the carelessness. I don't know if he was late or not, honestly. I think he planned this almost immediately and not texting me all night as part of it. Now for the update. Long story short, I broke up with him for the following reasons. 1. Drunk driving, endangering himself and others. 2. Took his mother's phone and made me think it was her. Deception. 3. Telling me he was dead. Deception/extreme emotional stress. 4. Letting me think that 4 hours. I could list every negative trait for that one. Borderline sociopathic behavior. 5. Not being sorry for any of these things. Twat. 6. Telling me I'm too sensitive. Invalidation, shifting blame. 7. Being mad at me for relapsing. Unsupportive, uncaring, unkind. I still won't blame him for the relapse though, as many people here wanted me to. That is on me and I'm still going to therapy regularly for that. So, for those interested, I took a few days to myself. I did speak over the phone to his mom and she was incredibly apologetic on his behalf. I taught her how to put a passcode on her phone. After that, we met up and I outlined the things I listed above. He seemed apologetic and sincere about all of them and listened to me well. Unfortunately, he didn't quite understand that being apologetic wouldn't get me to change my mind on ending the relationship. So his true colors came out at the end. He got annoyed at me for ending it and again told me I was dramatic and other invalidating arguments. Oh well, I said what I needed to say, and that's enough closure for me. Wow, boyfriend is such a piece of trash. What is with people who think faking a death is a prank? Especially committing to it 4 hours. With a person who has a history of harming themselves when emotions get so high. Why would you do this? This dude makes me so mad. Poor OP. I'm the type that tries to find a silver lining in everything, and I can see two here. She got rid of an unsupportive, selfish, insert bad word, guy. She also figured out a potentially powerful trigger for her to regress in self-harm, so could work on that as unfortunately death is a part of life she will have to deal with in the future. Glad she left him. What he did was unforgivable. Yep, that is a line in the sand. Absolutely no coming back from it kind of situation. I would completely change how I saw the person after that. I think anyone would. The fact that he still doesn't even get how awful what he did was. It's just the final nail, so she knows she made the right decision. But no amount of apologizing could undo what he did. I could literally never trust that person again. I could never have a fulfilling relationship because of the doubt. All down the drain. If he didn't have bad intentions and is just a moron, that's almost sadder. Part of me thinks his mom tore him a new one, assuming she knew before they talked given the post layout, and thought sorry would get him out all of his trouble. When it didn't, the anger he has from the punishments of his own actions came back up and he lashed out. Personally, I think he needs more therapy than what he's pushing OP to get. Man is unhinged. I'd 100% blame him for the relapse, especially after the zero remorse. I'd bet if she hadn't self-harmed, he'd have been griping that she didn't really love him. This guy's bad news. Next story. My husband is pushing me to agree to make my sister our surrogate using the traditional way. My husband and I have been struggling with infertility. We've tried some options, and right now we're looking into surrogacy. My sister agreed to do it, but my husband said he looked at how much time and money IVF would take and slowly started hinting that we'd take the traditional way. I was too shocked to even say anything, but he acted like what he said was not even that big of a deal. He explained that it's just a quick way for us to have a baby and spare the money and time to use later. I'm 100% against it. That is why I'm backing down, and I'm no longer comfortable with the whole surrogacy route. I can't even imagine my sister's reaction once she hears my husband's suggestion. I'm both devastated over the fact that 1, he'd even entertain sleeping with my sister just because he wants the easy way. And 2, if I ever agree despite feeling uncomfortable, then I will always carry this memory of how the baby is conceived. I refused and shut his suggestion down hard. He's now started guilting me, saying I don't trust him, then saying I'm selfish for choosing to back out when he still wants to be a dad like he expected when he married me, basically blaming me for my infertility issues. I feel so devastated, and like my body's useless and has failed me to the point where I could expect any negative comment on it, whether true or not, emotionally and mentally. I just can't express how I feel right now. By the way, my sister is 4 years younger than me. I'm 34 years old and my husband is 37. Now for the top advice. What has your sister said? Do you think they've done it already? OP, you are not useless, but your husband is. My sister has no idea. I'm not planning on telling her because I won't let it happen. I'm not even considering his suggestion. And if he wants to keep saying that I'm the problem, then it's fine with me. I've endured so much for the past years mentally, physically, and emotionally, and now it won't be much different. Why do you want to have babies with this man? You can have babies with anyone else, but this guy is not husband or father material. First of all, I'm very sorry you are dealing with this. Nobody should ever have to feel this way. Second, I really hope and pray that you see this for what it is, and not allow him to guilt you into something you clearly do not want. I'm angry for you, because there's no way in hell that would just blow over with me personally. It's such an insensitive thing to say during such a difficult situation. I feel terrible as it is, and did not need to have to deal with this on top of everything else going on. I lost my mom a month ago and my emotions have been all over the place. I admit that I can get upset and agitated pretty easily, but his suggestion was beyond shocking. I feel like me and him just keep diving deeper into more issues that have significantly affected our marriage. I offered couples counseling, but he said no. I feel like the universe has protected you in a way. He is showing so many red flags. Gaslighting you too. Who's to say he isn't the one with the issues? It is not your fault. None of this is. I'm so sorry for your loss with your mother. I wish you the very best ahead in life, whatever you choose to do. Now for the last story. My boyfriend expects me to do majority of the housework even though I work double his hours. How do I resolve this without an argument? Background. I'm 30 female, he's 38 male. We've been together for 7 years and have lived together for 2. Throughout the 7 years we've been together, I have consistently worked full-time. He, on the other hand, is on and off with work and hasn't lasted for longer than 4 months in a job. I would say in total, he's worked perhaps 1.5 years in our relationship. The house we live in is his. It has no mortgage as his dad paid it all. We split the bills, but I would say in total I have contributed more financially if we are including socializing, holidays, groceries. One thing he has always done while being unemployed is cook for us almost daily, once a day as we do 1 meal a day, and take the trash out. He also did laundry once a week. I did dishes, bathroom, and other stuff. To be fair, it's a relatively small house, and just the 2 of us, so there's not a massive amount to do. I was really happy with this arrangement because having healthy food cooked every day took a massive mental load from my mind. I had no complaints. The issue is 6 weeks ago, he got a part-time job, 20 hours a week. And now we do the cooking 5 out of 7 days a week, plus all of the rest of the housework. The only thing he does is take the bins out once a week and do laundry once a week. I feel like on top of working full-time, it is a lot for me to do alone. The worst part is he will always pick at small, minor things I've forgotten to do or haven't done to his liking. As an example, I cleaned the whole bathroom until it was sparkling and the only thing he said after he saw it was, "You left the soap dish on the wrong side of the bath." This really hurts my feelings as I feel like I'm doing a lot for nothing. No praise, no recognition that I do all of this on top of working double his hours. Sometimes I don't feel comfortable confronting him because part of me feels ashamed about complaining about housework as a woman, almost as if it makes me less of a woman to not be okay with this. I really feel like I'm going crazy because it doesn't even acknowledge the big difference in what we do. What's scary is, we actually have the same dynamic as my parents. My mom did all of the housework and paid all of the bills, while my dad was in and out of work his whole life. I don't want that life. Can someone advise on how I can navigate this without starting an argument? It always becomes an argument. I found this comment you wrote not too long ago. Currently in a draining relationship and having to manage his emotions like he's a toddler. I'm working, paying for majority of stuff, and he can't keep a job because he's lazy and impulsive. I felt your comment so hard. Was thriving when I was single. So the housework is just the tip of the iceberg. What exactly keeps you with this loser besides inertia? He brings nothing to the table. He brings free rent. Can't see much else. So it's simply a math issue of if it's better for OP to move out, pay rent and be chore happy, or stay put as the free housing is worth more than the extra chores. I expect she's in the same predicament as many people living in this manner, where she may not be able to cover a place like this on their own salary. If she can, she should be off this forum and packing her stuff. I expect her feet are financially glued to the place, if you get my drift. This might make me sound stupid, but I'm actually not financially glued to him. My mom lives down the road and my room is waiting for me. She would also value me contributing to that household again. I also have savings, so could put down 50% on a house deposit if I were to get into a relationship with someone willing to put in the other half. In the meantime, I would be happy living with my mom as it's a big house and we have a good relationship. I know, this makes me sound even more silly for staying. It sounds like you know the answer here. Hey, your boyfriend dropped these red flags. No, seriously, he's a douche canoe, and you need to find a new boyfriend. He sucks and is a horrible human being. Or even, I know this sounds crazy, be single for a bit. Opie hasn't been single since she was 23. Depending on if she went to college, she's been with this guy potentially her entire adult life. Opie, it's hard to imagine, but you don't have to be with someone if you don't have great reasons for why you still want to be with him. Thanks for understanding. Sometimes it's so hard to try to explain why I can't leave when we have no practical ties. I did go to college, but got with him almost immediately after. I'm very laid back and fun-loving, but he's very intense and dominating. I feel like since I was very young, he's just gotten into my head massively to the point where a lot of his ideas and thoughts have become mine. It was only when I got to around 28 that I started understanding why someone with his personality is so attracted to someone with my personality. If I'm completely honest, I know deep down what's happened here and the situation I'm in. It's just so freaking hard to untangle my psyche from him, almost like my brain is in quicksand. I think the first step would be confiding in someone close to me because I've never done that. Ashamed and embarrassed.